So you've spent your 30 hours in the simulator, you take to the sky to get some epic content, you get back to your computer, and all of your footage looks like this. Let's be real, most of us get into FPV to capture that insane cinematic footage we see online. But here's the mistake a lot of FPV pilots make. They think better gear or more flight hours will magically fix their footage. Spoiler alert, there's way more to it. Composition, motion, and shot planning all play a huge role, and if you overlook them, you could completely ruin your footage. Today I'm breaking down some key techniques to help you nail that smooth cinematic look we all know and love. Stick around, because by the end of this video, Michael Bay will be calling you for his next blockbuster.
In this huge tanker full of diamonds.
The thing that makes FPV drone footage so thrilling is the speed, the danger, and seeing things from a completely different angle. FPV drones allow us to bring the audience along for the ride, making them feel like they're part of the action. But here's where many new pilots go wrong. They play it too safe. Now that's completely understandable. You may have saved up for months to buy your very first FPV drone, and you don't want to destroy it on your first flight.
SpongeBob, careful! Careful, SpongeBob! Careful, SpongeBob! Careful, SpongeBob!
But here's the truth. A video isn't compelling unless there's risk. Think about the most memorable cinematic FPV shots. What is it that makes them stand out? It's the sense of danger and excitement, the feeling that the drone is inches away from disaster. We as a viewer have been transported into the video to become part of the action. There are a few key ways you can introduce that same level of risk while still being in control. Number one, fly close to things. If your footage feels boring, it's probably because you're not flying close enough to objects. The whole point of FPV drones is to fly in close proximity to things. The lower and tighter you fly, the more intense the shot will feel. Also, you'll get a ton of motion blur, which will make the footage feel even faster. Number two, use gaps to your advantage. Flying through tight spaces creates instant excitement. Even without explaining it, viewers understand the risk. Attention spans have never been shorter, and a tight gap is a great way to grab someone's attention quickly. Pause. Number three, chase subjects dynamically. If you're tracking a car or a bike, don't just follow from a safe distance. Put yourself in the rooster tail of dust or water spray to amplify the intensity. Just make sure to never put the subject at risk. These drones are dangerous and things can go wrong quickly. Number four, push your limits, but work up to it. You don't have to go full send on day one. In fact, I highly recommend you don't. Build confidence in the simulator and then slowly increase the risk factor in real world flights. The only way to get better is to put in quality stick time every single week. With that said, if you're dialing up the risk, you have to be prepared for the consequences. Eventually, you will crash. Capturing those high-risk cinematic shots means accepting that damage or even total loss is part of the process. If wrecking your drone would completely stop you from flying, maybe reconsider how much risk you're willing to take. And if the shot isn't calling for a risky maneuver, then maybe a traditional drone is more appropriate. When done right, adding controlled risk to your FPV shots will transform them from just another drone clip to a magical and memorable video.
Nice.
Has this ever happened to you? You arrive in an amazing new location, excited to fly. You throw your drone up in the air and start exploring, completely blown away by how beautiful the area is. You spend a few battery packs just flying around, soaking it all in. Before you know it, an hour has passed. You finally found the perfect line, but now you're out of batteries. The best FPV footage comes from unique locations, but if you just show up without a plan, you'll waste precious time and battery life just flying around random, uninteresting lines. Learning to make a great shot takes practice and experience, but planning ahead will get you there much faster. Before you hit record, plan your shot. The first step to planning your shot is often one of the harder steps, finding the right location. While you can technically make a cinematic video in any location, you'll do yourself a huge favor if you actually fly in a good spot. If you aren't sure of where to fly, start by looking for interesting places every time you drive somewhere. Mountains, curvy roads, steep cliffs, or even parking garages all make for incredible FPV environments. If you need ideas, check out Instagram or YouTube for inspiration from other pilots. But if you want to discover a spot that no one else has flown before, Google Maps is your best friend. With Google Maps and Street View, you can explore new areas from your phone or computer before ever heading out. If the area has LiDAR data, you can even see a 3D view to help visualize your flight path. FPV is still relatively new, so there are plenty of untouched places just waiting to be explored. Some pilots take off with no real plan, just hoping they'll capture something cool along the way. But the best FPV footage rarely happens by accident. It's carefully planned. Before launching your drone, walk around the area and try to get eyes on the line you want to fly. Make sure there aren't any obstacles like buildings, power lines, or trees in the way. If you have a traditional camera drone, you can send it up first for a quick scouting pass. Just remember, that drone probably costs more than your FPV drone, so don't crash it while scouting. Visualizing the flight in your head is a great way to build confidence before you even take off. Define a line based on the risk you're willing to take and try to predict how you'll move throughout the flight. Think about how your drone enters, moves through, and exits the scene. The goal is to have a cohesive video that makes the audience want to watch the entire thing. If you're filming a dynamic subject, such as a car or a motocross rider, communicate with them before the flight. Understanding the route and speed will help you anticipate movements and capture better shots. The more you plan ahead, the more polished and cinematic your footage will be. Once you feel confident with the location and your flight plan, send up the FPV drone. Stick to a clear path, focus on smooth, controlled movements, and commit to the line. Try not to ad-lib too much. It's these unplanned maneuvers that often cause crashes. Most of your performance in these moments falls back on your muscle memory, so before you ever get to this point, ensure that you are very confident in how your drone reacts. Once you've completed the flight, review the footage and be ruthlessly honest with its quality.
This is the worst!
Is it a good clip? Is there any part you can improve? Was the line even good? Asking these questions before you leave the location will mean leaving with your best results. Admittedly, this next part won't help you create better footage, but it is worth mentioning. Before you get too excited for a spot, you need to check if there's any flight restrictions. Some locations may look perfect for FPV, but they could be in restricted airspace. Ask yourself, is this a protected wilderness area? Are there any temporary flight restrictions? Do city or state rules prohibit drone flights here? In the US, drone flights can be restricted 3 different ways: in the federal level, in the state level, and in the city or county level. While you might not immediately get caught flying in a restricted area, posting the footage online could get you fined or worse. It's always better to avoid these issues up front and fly legally. This is a super dense topic that could be its own video. Let me know if finding places to fly would be an interesting video and maybe I can make one. Remember, the more you plan, the less you'll have to rely on luck to get good footage. After planning your flight and your line, it's time to execute it to the best of your abilities, which leads us to the next tip. If you want great cinematic footage, you have to fly smoothly. You may be used to freestyle FPV, which is a ton of fun, but the sudden movements can be nauseating and disorienting for viewers. We as pilots don't mind the crazy movements, but the whole point of cinematic video is entertaining the audience. If the audience is motion sick, they're probably not going to be very entertained. Smooth flying starts at the sticks. Instead of making sharp, jerky movements, every movement should be smooth and intentional. Visualize where you want to go before making the movement instead of just reacting to what's in front of you. Instead of sharply changing direction, smooth out those corners so every line feels flowy. This doesn't mean you should only fly in a straight line. In fact, quite the opposite. FPV drones are agile, and you should take advantage of that unique quality. Curve around obstacles, fly close to things, and punch through gaps. Just make sure it's smooth. Most of being smooth comes down to throttle control. Every movement of the quad is directly tied to throttle, so it's really important to master it. For example, if you find yourself overcorrecting after diving movements, this shows you should probably work on your control. A picture-perfect dive is one where the quad pulls out of the dive perfectly without any excess elevation gain. Unsurprisingly, this also creates the most cinematic result. Now, your throttle control will naturally improve over time as your skills progress, but there's also a couple drills you can do to supercharge your skill level. Those drills are launching slowly, landing slowly, and hovering. I know, they're super basic, but those are surprisingly hard to master. Everyone loves one of those crazy rocket ship takeoffs, but if we're being honest, they're not very difficult to do. Instead, next time you launch, try to take off as slowly as possible without any wobbles. Next, practice hovering in place without moving. I think it'll surprise you how difficult this is. Finally, try to land your drone on a tiny spot without making a sound.
That's an expensive docking station, sir.
Yeah. These drills will help build that fine motor control that carries over into smooth flight. Once you've flown the best line you can, it's time to sprinkle on that magic sauce: stabilization. Modern action cameras and VTXs have gyros built right in. When we combine this data with free software like GyroFlow, we can produce some really incredible results. GyroFlow gives an astounding level of customization, and it's completely free. I highly recommend it. Even the best tuned quads tend to have some jitters in the footage. Stabilization software smooths out those micro movements and really turns your footage into something else entirely. It's not a miracle worker though. It can't get rid of large movements without cropping in heavily, so it's still really important to fly well. If you make sure to fly smoothly and stabilize in post, you'll instantly level up your cinematic footage. One of the easiest ways to improve your FPV footage is remembering this simple fact: every shot needs a subject. If you're out there just cruising, you may be having fun, but you're probably not making very cinematic footage. Have a purpose for the flight. Ask yourself, why is this subject important? Landscapes can make great subjects, especially if you're highlighting a cool feature like a ridgeline or a waterfall, but having a human subject is even better. Landscapes in general aren't nearly as compelling, so if it is your subject, make sure it's incredibly interesting. Humans doing cool things, however, makes great and relatable FPV videos. Whether that's rally cars, kiteboarders, mountain bikers, or even just someone standing on a cliff. When a viewer sees a person in a cool clip, they can subconsciously put themselves into that position. It just makes for a better video. If your subject is a person, make sure you know exactly what they're going to do. What path are they going to take, and at what speed? Do you have multiple opportunities to capture the subject, or is it one and done? How can you interact with the subject in a unique and meaningful way? Is the shot safe for the subject and for the people around? While it's fun to film new things, the best results come when you're filming sports that you know very well. Try to predict what's going to happen and never put the subject in danger without their consent. Once you've defined the subject, try and reveal it in a cool way that only an FPV drone can do. Cinematic video needs a purpose, a story, so try to keep that in mind during the flight. Build tension if you can. Preview the subject to keep the audience hooked, then reveal it spectacularly. Show a reason why the audience should care about the video, whether that's a beautiful landscape or an incredible athlete. Having a subject is a great shortcut to creating a banger video. I really appreciate you making it this far in the video. If you haven't already, you should definitely subscribe and join our community. These videos are a ton of effort, and I appreciate each and every one of you that watches.
I just wanted to say
thanks.
And now the final and probably most important key to creating cinematic video is to know your camera. All cameras have strengths and weaknesses, and you need to know those before you're actually on a shoot. It's important to practice using a variety of settings on your action camera so you know how the camera will react. I regularly go out to boring locations and try new camera settings just so I can test them out. Test your camera in scenes with high contrast or when it's dark. Test different shutter speeds. Try out auto settings. Try different crops. If you have a big shot plan that can only be done once, make sure you know how your camera works in every scenario. There's nothing worse than getting home and realizing you fumbled the shot. Now these are the settings I use just as a starting point, but I often change these. Generally, I stick to the 180-degree shutter rule, which means I lock my shutter speed at 2 times the frame rate. This means if I'm shooting at 24 frames per second, I will lock my shutter speed at 1/50. If I'm shooting at 60 frames per second, I'll lock it at 1/120. The result is that creamy motion blur that makes the shot feel fast and cinematic. However, the result of these shutter speeds means that often the scene is too bright. To get that motion blur, you're going to need ND filters. ND filters act like sunglasses for your camera by reducing the amount of light that goes in. I generally use Polar Pro filters, but Camera Butter makes great filters at a more reasonable price. This is another one of those super dense subjects, and I'm leaving a ton out just for the sake of time. If you want a dedicated video on cameras and camera settings, maybe let me know down below. But in summary, if you want to create the ultimate cinematic video, you have to know your camera. Honestly, there was no way I could cover everything here. I had to narrow it down to only these 5 tips, but I have a ton more, so let me know if you want a part 2. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see you next time.